So now we're going to work on cash disbursements and payments. You may recall, just to review, that we had a purchase budget. This is when we're going to buy the flip-flops. That doesn't mean we're going to pay them on the day that we buy them. It's not uncommon when businesses buy and sell to each other. So here we are buying from whoever's making the flops, and they probably give us 30 days to pay. That's called buying on credit or buying on account, so that we don't have to go pick it up at their dock and pay them right there, the way that consumers have to. So even though we bought $196 in Q1, we may not have paid $196 when we picked them up. We might have been given a few weeks to pay for it. And so the question is, let's link this to our purchases over here. Okay, so when did we pay the $196? When did we pay the $227? We have to go to our assumption sheet. Payments for flip-flops. 60% are paid in the quarter you buy it, and the rest in the next quarter. So this has a similar rhythm to the cash receipts budget, that even though we sold it to the stores have a couple of weeks to pay, so we may not have gotten the cash in the same quarter that we sold it. Same thing here. We may not have paid in the same quarter that we purchased it. So paid in the quarter purchase, so of the $196, what percent was paid in that quarter? 60%. Notice I'm linking back to the assumptions page, not typing it in. I'm not hard coding. When am I going to get the rest? The next quarter. So these two added together is the 196. So that's when Q1 payments are paid for. This much is paid in Q1 and the rest is paid in Q2. All right. What about Q2? 60% of it is going to be paid for in Q2, and the rest will be paid in Q3. You can make two more formulas just like that if you want. For those that want to step it up to the more advanced level, you could go up here, click in this cell address and hit F4. If you have a Mac, then you have to type the $ before the D and before the 18 manually. Your F4 won't do that for you. But if you do that, if you anchor that so that it doesn't float from D18 to E18 to F18, then you can copy this over and it will continue to look at D18 and D18. And so you can do the formula once and copy it over once you've anchored it on that cell so that it won't float. Or do it the other way, which is fine. The question, though, similar to what we had for collections in Q4, when the 287, here's 60% of it, where's the rest of the 287? When will that be paid? This is what we're collecting in Q4 relating to Q4. This is collecting the rest of Q3. So where's the rest of Q4? The rest of Q4 will be paid in the first quarter of year 4, next year. So everything we bought less what we paid for it in Q4 is going to be paid in year 4. That means at the end of year 3, that's going to be purchased and still owed. Hasn't been paid yet. So things we've purchased from vendors that we haven't paid for go in accounts payable. So this $114,800, what we bought but haven't paid for yet and still owe, will be on our balance sheet under accounts payable as a liability at the end of year 3. So when we get ready to do the year 3 balance sheet, we will need this amount. Now, what about last year? Last year, at the end of year 2, the fourth quarter of year 2 had some amounts that we're collecting in Q1 of year 3. Where will we find that? On the balance sheet of year 2. Up here. That's what we owed for purchases in year 2 that had not been paid yet, and we will pay that in the first quarter of year 3. So we can add this up. Actually, we don't have to have a subtotal here, but we could if we wanted to. It's up to you. We're doing all the disbursements. So we're going to come down here. There's other disbursements besides disbursements for purchases of inventory. So if you want a subtotal there, you can certainly do that. But we have a few more disbursements. We have sales commission, and sales commission is a % of sales. So we're going to calculate that. So let's go here. We need sales for the first quarter times, what was the assumption here? 20%. 20% of the sales, and it's paid when sold. Okay, so there's no delay there. And I can drag this across as long as I anchor, put the dollar signs in front of the D and in front of the 20. I can drag that over. And the reason I can drag that over is because the sales budget arrays all the way to the left, but this does not. So I have to anchor the cell or it will float over here and you'll be multiplying it times 0. And so if these end up being 0, that's what you did. You didn't anchor it. Or you can just rebuild this formula 4 times if you don't want to move to that level. It's fine. All right, packing supplies are based on units, so much per unit. So I can link to the units either on the sales budget or the assumptions. I can take first quarter units, and it's $2 per unit. I just noticed I had the details wrong. This is $2 per unit paid when sold. Okay. And if you drag this over, let's say you don't anchor the assumption of $2. When you drag it over, that's what it looks like. You get trash because it's moving over, it's capturing sales, but it's multiplying it by something that has nothing in there. So now I'm going to put the dollar sign in front of the D and the 21. Now when I drag it over, it will stay locked on that $2 per unit. Or just do the calculation we did here 4 times. Miscellaneous costs are so much per period, so there's nothing to multiply it to. Just point to the assumption per quarter, paid in the quarter. Again, you can either point to it 4 times or you can anchor it here using your dollar sign. That's removing the relative reference if you want the formal technical term for what we're doing in Excel, and you don't have to know the technical term. And then salary, right now there is no salary. We can point to where you may put a salary in for doing a little bit of experimenting, but there's no salaries currently. If you decide to play with this scenario a little bit and put a salary in, be sure that you put the salary on the assumption page so that it shows up here when you have to pay it as a disbursement. And so then your total disbursements, if you put a subtotal in, you'll just have to add the subtotal. If you didn't do a subtotal, then your formula needs to go all the way up, right? If there's no subtotal here. But since I did a subtotal, I'm good. And just like the other one, just like the receipts budget, you want to highlight these 4 and look down below. And then let's add across. And make sure that those all match just fine. So I'm going to highlight all these and make sure they also equal the 1,649,000, and this one equals the 1,649,000. So then all is good. Okay. So that is your disbursements budget. The next we'll work on is the cash budget. See you in a few minutes.